Did you know there was once a man so terrifying, entire armies would turn around and run at the mere sight of his forest? But here's the thing, this wasn't a forest of trees. It was a forest of 20,000 impaled bodies, stretching for miles across the battlefield. And the wildest part, many of you are probably wondering, how was that even possible? Was this guy even human? Well, let me tell you the story of Vlad III, better known as Vlad the Impaler. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, this sounds like something out of a horror movie, right? But here's where things get interesting. Vlad wasn't just some bloodthirsty maniac. He was actually a prince fighting to save his homeland from one of the most powerful empires in the world. Picture this. It's 1456. You're ruling a small Christian kingdom called Wallachia, squeezed between the massive Ottoman Empire and Hungary. The Ottomans are demanding tribute, your own nobles are plotting behind your back, and everyone wants a piece of your land. What would you do? Well, Vlad came up with a solution that nobody could have expected. But wait, there's more. Many of you are probably wondering, how does someone become that ruthless? Here's the dark truth. Vlad learned his methods from the very people he would later terrify. When Vlad was just 11 years old, his father made a deal with the Ottoman Sultan. The price? His 2 sons as hostages. Can you imagine? Vlad spent his teenage years as a prisoner in the Ottoman court, witnessing their brutal punishments and executions firsthand. Now here's the twisted part. The Ottomans actually tried to convert him to Islam and make him their puppet. But instead of breaking him, it taught him something far more dangerous: how to use fear as a weapon. So here's where the legend really begins. In 1462, Sultan Mehmed II, the same guy who conquered Constantinople, personally led an army of 90,000 men to crush this rebellious prince once and for all. But when the Ottomans reached the outskirts of Targabashte, Vlad's capital, they saw something that would haunt them forever. Do you see it? A forest of impaled bodies stretching as far as the eye could see. 20,000 corpses, including women and children, slowly rotting in the sun. The smell was so overwhelming that even the Sultan, a man who had seen countless battles, reportedly vomited and ordered his army to retreat. Can you imagine being so terrifying that you make the conqueror of Constantinople turn back? Now, you're probably thinking this guy was definitely a psychopath, right? But here's where the story gets complicated. In Romania today, Vlad isn't remembered as a monster. He's celebrated as a hero. Why? Because every person he impaled was either an invading Ottoman soldier, a corrupt nobleman, or a criminal. To the common people of Wallachia, Vlad was the prince who stood up to the empire that was enslaving their children and draining their land. But that's the real question, isn't it? When does protecting your people cross the line into becoming the very monster you're fighting against? Many of you are probably wondering, so how did this real-life prince become the legendary vampire Dracula? Well, that's where things get even more interesting. Vlad's father was known as Vlad Dracula, meaning Vlad the Dragon, because he belonged to the Order of the Dragon, a Christian military order. So Vlad III was literally Dracula, son of the dragon. But here's the twist Bram Stoker probably never intended. The real Dracula was fighting against the forces of darkness, not serving them. He was a Christian prince defending Europe from what many saw as an unstoppable invasion. So what's the real truth about Vlad the Impaler? Was he a bloodthirsty monster or a desperate hero using the only methods that worked? Here's what we know for sure. Vlad ruled for only about 6 years in total, but in that time, he wiped out crime in Wallachia, stopped Ottoman expansion into Europe, and created such a reputation for ruthlessness that his enemies surrendered rather than fight him. But here's the question that still haunts historians. In a world where mercy meant watching your people suffer and die, was Vlad's brutality actually mercy? What would you do if you were in his place? Would you choose to be loved by your enemies or feared by them? That's the real question, isn't it? So next time you hear the name Dracula, remember, the real vampire wasn't the one drinking blood. It was the empire draining the life from an entire region. And sometimes, it takes a monster to fight a monster. But that's a story for another night. Want to dig deeper into the legends of Europe? Which dark figures should we uncover next? Drop your ideas below.